See that she was trying to appear extremely upset, but there were no tears. Changes her facts very fucking quickly. So we're admitting you're embellishing. Great, got it. Amber could have won this defamation case. Hey guys, so today is a bit of a longer video because we are going to go through the direct, cross and redirect when Amber Heard was on the witness stand. Obviously, I cannot go through every single thing she said. It was a very long testimony, it was over multiple days, but I'm going to try and hit most of the key points that I think are very important and where things, let's be honest, just kind of unravel for her. I'm going to say this right off the bat. In 2016, when, I believe it was 2016, when the video of Johnny Depp slamming cabinets, etc. was released, I, like a lot of others, was manipulated into believing that plus the picture of her outside the courthouse getting a restraining order proved abuse. I think that comes from wanting to believe people when they say they have been abused or assaulted or raped, and Johnny for a while didn't say or do anything when those accusations happened, which made a lot of people think that that made it true. I used to believe Amber Heard. However, her story has started to unravel over the last couple of years. In hindsight, when you look at how scared Johnny was during the time that they were married.
I'm scared to death. I'm frightened and I don't know what to do. I'm confused and I want to go home.
よろしくお願いします。まず久々の日本についての感想を聞かせてください。
Personally, Johnny is one of the most soulful and kind-hearted and gentle humans that I know. So to see him get transformed into a man.
Even there has been pictures of abrasions to Amber's knuckles on red carpet events. She didn't think she'd ever get caught. I have a theory about that, which I will talk about at the end, because I don't want it to overshadow any of the actual court evidence. Before we get into this at all, I just want to make a note that there was a motion to strike this case.
For this motion, I've taken the arguments of counsel, and last night I reviewed all of the evidence that has been submitted in this matter. So as to the second and third alleged defamatory statements, the motion to strike at this juncture, I view the evidence in the light most favorable to the plaintiff and reasonable inferences from the evidence to the plaintiff. And if there is a scintilla of evidence that a reasonable juror could weigh, then the matter survives a motion to strike. In this matter, there is evidence in the case that a jury could weigh that the statements were made by the defendant, that the statements were about the plaintiff, that the statement was published, that the statement is false, and the defendant made the statement knowing it to be false, or the defendant made it so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth. The weight of that evidence is up to the fact finder, so the motion to strike is denied as to statement 2 and 3.
I don't know enough about the court system. I was under the impression when this first happened that she was trying to get his defamation suit denied. However, that's not the case. This happens with all kind of cases like this. Just side note, I think this judge has been extremely fair. I think she's also been very flexible. Johnny Depp and his team are literally snacking on sweets, candy, like the whole way through this trial, and that's not normally allowed in any courtroom. Yes, there are times where, like, you may not agree with the judge. There are times where I definitely haven't agreed with the judge's rulings of, like, objecting or anything like that. But in general, she's been very fair, and she will say I think she's getting to her limit with Amber's team. We'll get to that. Okay, so first of all, something I want to note is Amber walked directly past Johnny's table. She did not try to make eye contact with him, but I think that was a choice because she has not been frightened of looking him directly in the eye at any other time in this trial. She wasn't frightened of him at all in that moment. However, there's a point where he doesn't really notice that she hasn't left the stand yet. She very dramatically appears terrified of him. I don't know what happened there. A lot of people have said that they think genuinely that Johnny assumed she was already at her table. I don't think that was very nice for Johnny either. Something I want to note is that Amber consistently looks directly at the jury every single time she answers. There's only a handful of times that she's either looking at the person who's asking the questions, or she's looking Johnny directly down. So either she's been over-trained by her attorneys, or she's trying to manipulate them. She does talk about her background and discuss that when she was a kid and she was working with her dad, I believe, that she used to break horses. You have to break them to be able to ride them, kind of thing.
And what did your father do for a living?
My father broke horses and did construction.
Is it involved in breaking horses?
You just got to stay on, basically. I would help him. I was more of a crash test dummy. You know, when you train a horse, it's a wild animal. It doesn't necessarily like to be ridden.
And people have said that they don't know if that was the best analogy. That sounds like what an abuser would do. They try and break down their victim. They try to use that in their own definition of like, she didn't want to give up on this relationship. She was trying to break the horse, break the drug habit, break the abuser sort of thing. But honestly, when you look at all the actual physical evidence, like all the photos that they admitted especially, things just don't line up. When Amber's talking about their actual relationship, she turns around and she says that it was a very magical, beautiful time. And
it was a beautiful and strange time. It felt like a dream. It felt like absolute magic. It was a beautiful place, a beautiful time.
Not telling someone who's a victim of abuse of how they should act, but someone who was in an abusive relationship and has been sexually assaulted by that same person, I don't ever look back. The descriptors are just extremely odd, because I've heard as well from other people who have been in abusive relationships or victim of assault, and a lot of them have said that they would never use that kind of terminology around their abuser, no matter how good the relationship may have been at one point. You're clouded, put it this way, by the bad times, the abusive moments. I genuinely don't even remember a good time with my abuser, so make of that what you will. I found the descriptors very questionable. She then goes on and says that even during those magical, beautiful times, Johnny was very controlling, especially around her clothing that she wore, especially on like red carpets, and around the roles that she chose.
Time I was walking out of the house, he would ask me, "That's really what you're wearing, kid? Oh, I see. You know, I wore a dress to an event once," and I said, you know, "Did you see that thing?" And he said, yeah, I think the whole world saw that, kid. That's how they'll remember you. That's how the world will remember you. And I was like, oh, come on. I mean, it's like, but it, you know, I felt good in it. I felt good. And he said, yeah, kid, that's what you're putting out there in the world. No one will ever forget that. And that's all they'll see you as. That's what you wanted. That's what you were going for. You know, my dress was slow cut. I get it. Slow cut.
So there has been other testimony around Johnny being a controlling partner. However, that is from somebody that hasn't been with him for over 30 years. So make of that fucking what you will. We'll get into that in my week 5 roundup. But yeah, so Amber used to take on roles that were very like girl next door, sexualizing her as like this sexual being, whether there was nude scenes, etc. Femme fatale roles. In Johnny's testimony, he said that the reason he brought stuff like this up wasn't to diminish what roles she chose. It was more because she was frustrated by the roles that she was given, that it was always the same sexualized roles, and she wanted more. She wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. He said the way to do that is not to take those roles, to take roles that are more serious, that aren't just, like, for instance, I think of like Charlize Theron. I have a huge crush on Charlize Theron. I think she's one of the most beautiful women I have ever seen in my whole life. If I met her, I would probably cry. She was always seen as this just gorgeous woman. And then she did, I think it was called Monster. She played a serial killer and she did not look at all like herself. Margot Robbie was looked at as a really beautiful woman. And then she played, I want to say Tarot. She played I, Tonya. She was able to break out into different roles. If you want to be taken seriously as an actor, you have to look for those sort of roles that really push your capabilities, and that you work with acting coach to increase your craft. That's what all actors do. You don't just wake up one day and are a good musician. You don't just wake up one day and are a fantastic singer. You don't just wake up one day and are a fantastic actor. It takes time and it takes effort and it takes hard work. And I'm not trying to say that Amber doesn't work hard. I don't know. I don't fucking know. That's what you have to do, and you have to take these other roles to become more serious. So you can kind of look at it one of two ways. You could say that maybe she was looking for those roles, but maybe she wasn't getting those roles because she wasn't good enough as an actor. I'm just saying, I don't know, as a possibility. I don't fucking know. I wasn't the casting director. I've never seen her in one of those roles, so I don't know if she is a good enough actress. I feel like people are really going to come for me for this. So apparently it was little sly things like that he used to say. And then she said also that he threw things, bottles, glassware, things like that at her.
At first, it was just to throw something, smash some things. He loves to smash up a place, an apartment, furniture. That's what it started with. Threw glass at me, and I remember it was summer. And he just threw this glass across the kitchen, and it didn't hit me, but it shattered behind me, and I remember thinking that it very easily could have hit me.
Okay, I'm really trying not to be super biased, okay? I'm really trying. To me, personally, it does seem what she's saying that Johnny did, like smashing things, etc. It very much seems like she's trying to put her behaviour onto him. There's been plenty of audio recordings that show the opposite of everything she says. This is one of the reasons why I take everything she says with a grain of salt. Like I said, nothing she says lines up. So she then said that first time that Johnny hit her was over his wino tattoo. He's got a tattoo on one of his arms. I never know what fucking side it is. It used to be a Winona Ryder Forever tattoo or something, and now it says wino forever.
Do you remember the first time that he physically hit you?
Yes.
Please tell the jury about it.
It's seemingly so stupid, so insignificant. Oh, never forget it. We're sitting next to each other on the couch, and I asked him about the tattoo he has on his arm, and to me it just looked like black marks. I didn't know what it said. It just looked like muddled, faded tattoo that was hard to read. And I said, "What does it say?" And he said it says wino. It says wino, and I didn't see that. I thought he was joking because it didn't look like it said that at all, and I laughed. It was that simple. I just laughed because I thought he was joking, and slapped me across the face, and I laughed. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. I thought, this must be a joke. This must be a joke. Because I didn't know what was going on. I just stared at him, kind of laughing still, thinking that he was going to start laughing too to tell me it was a joke. But he didn't. He said, "You think it's so funny? You think it's funny, bitch? You think you're a funny bitch?" And he slapped me again. It was clear it wasn't a joke anymore.
Again, I have a theory about this. It could be one of two things. I think, like I mentioned, I think a lot of these situations that she's mentioning are actually the opposite way around, or may be the opposite way around at the very least, because again the testimony just nothing makes sense. Like, she jumps around so much. She was on the sofa, then she was on the edge of the sofa, then she was on the carpet, then apparently she was looking at the dirty floor. She doesn't know how she got on the carpet, then she was on his back, but she also did this, and like the stair incident where he had her back to her, but then he was shouting in her face, and it's just like, but apparently he had his back to you. Like, anyway, so yeah, I have a theory around this wino tattoo. If if it was the other way around, this would make sense. I think she was jealous of any of his exes because there has been jealousy around his ex-wife that he had kids with, which she would not shut up about, by the way. I think possibly when she realised that Wino Forever was related to Winona Ryder, I think she hit him. I think this was the first time she assaulted him because she was jealous, or because she didn't, even if she didn't realise it was about Winona, she's been known to drink a lot of fucking red wine. We know that, right? $500 bottles, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds that Johnny has had to spend for her on these bottles of wine. We know she drinks a lot of fucking wine. So maybe as well, it's possible she thought he was making a joke about her and how much alcohol she drank. Just throwing that out there as a possibility. Don't know. But it would make more sense than him apparently getting frustrated that she didn't know what the fuck it said and then hitting her randomly. I mean, abusers do strange things, don't get me wrong. I will say, when she was discussing this story, she was really trying to cry. You could see that she was trying to appear extremely upset, but there were no tears. She had the face of someone who was extremely upset. She was sounding... If you didn't have the visuals, you would think that she was crying.
Because, God, did he just hit me? No, I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want this to be the reality. I didn't want to have the man I was in love with. I know you don't come back from that. You know, I'm not dumb. I know you can't hit a woman. You can't hit a man. You can't hit anyone. You can't just hit somebody because they... I knew it was wrong, and I knew that I had to leave him. And that's what broke my heart, because I didn't want to leave him. I thought if I got up out of that room, I would leave the best thing that ever happened to me.
But there were no tears. But we continue. So then she said that she apparently always used to walk away from these situations, which again just contradicts every single audio. There are so many audio clips.
All the trust is gone. All the fucking trust is gone in the relationship because you keep splitting.
I'm not going to be in a physical fucking altercation with you.
Then don't.
You fucking hit me last night. You fucking...
What about all the other times you split? Come on, you cannot act like that's about that. It's
well,
not.
On a plane, I can't split.
No, and you hit back, so don't act like you don't fucking participate.
I pushed you.
I'm not going to get into the details of that fight. You and I both know that you split when there is no physical violence involved. And that you do it like at the very beginning of fights these days. And if you split and you go into a different room and you don't actually leave that house, it does nothing but perpetuate the fight. Really, when you split on me, how do you feel when I leave you?
When I split, when I go into the other room, you're saying?
And getting me a room, getting another room in a hotel is just the same thing.
But at the same time, when you walk away from me, it pisses me off and makes me angrier. She's admitting to that with like the cabinet video where literally he grabs her phone because he's getting illegally recorded and being extremely frustrated. After like he puts her phone down, he says, "I'm going." No altercation. He doesn't touch her. He literally admits that he is going. He is like, none of this makes sense.
Sneak that shit on me, motherfucker.
I didn't. You were smashing shit. Then she says that as you've seen, Johnny wears a lot of rings. He always wears rings. This will become important on Cross, by the way.
And we're in the kitchen living room area, and he backhands me. And, it was, he wears a lot of rings. I remember kind of just feeling like my lip went into my teeth. And it got a little blood on the wall.
If you're getting hit with someone who has rings on their fingers, someone hits you, like they're opening, being cut and opened. Where in the fuck were all of these things? If that was happening, if she, he'd hit her teeth, how did she not have any chipped teeth? So she also refers to, and Johnny even admits, he put the monster away. So to Johnny, the monster is when he abuses drugs. It's his drug addiction. That's what he's referring to. And he uses that terminology because that's what she used to call it. So he referred to it in a similar way. Now, she is using that against him to say that the monster was the abuser, that he had put the abuser away.
Before I know it, he starts crying. And, you know, like, I had never seen an adult man cry. I didn't even really see my dad cry at my grandma's funeral. You know, it's weird. And he's crying. Tears, I mean, just falling out of his eyes. He gets down on his knees and he grabs my hands and he's touching my hands and he's saying to me, I will never do that again. I'm so sorry, baby. I put the fucker away. I thought I killed it and it's done. I thought I put the monster away and I've done it before. It's done. But on his knees.
So apparently she was very, very scared of Johnny, of course. But she was able to take a lot of photos of him passed out. He literally just looks like he's exhausted and has fallen asleep. Johnny has always come off as someone who works incredibly hard. That people have very, very long days on sets. And I can imagine it's very similar for Johnny. Even for me, when I work, I'm meant to work a 9 to 5. But there are days where I'm mentally and physically exhausted and I have to have a nap because I will have no evening otherwise. Or even on weekends, I'm so exhausted from the week that I physically can't get through the weekend without having like half an hour to an hour nap at like 1, 2 o'clock. Basically a siesta. So I'm so exhausted because I literally can't keep my eyes open to read a book or edit a video. And I'm only 32. I'm not trying to be rude, but a 50-year-old, I can imagine you may need a nap. Like, he's human. He didn't look like someone who was passed out drunk. The only time he's ever looked passed out is there was a picture on when he was on the floor. I mean, that photo with the ice cream especially, he had his hand in his pocket. So he clearly wasn't eating the ice cream. We will come back to that fucking photo. So then she talks about Kate James. I cannot believe this. Kate James is not a viable, credible witness. She was trying to discredit Kate James. She was saying that she drank on the job.
Difficult, troubled, and inconsistent. She drank on the job and stuff like that, and her behavior was
objection relevance
horrible.
Even though, like, Kate James has admitted to having her children there with her certain days when she's working. And that she, you know, used to get abusive text messages all hours of the night from Amber, but apparently Kate was the problem. She also tried, completely irrelevant, clearly just to try to discredit Kate James, tried to say that Kate James left her kids in a car and, Angel Amber was the person to highlight that, you know, you shouldn't leave your kids in the car. Like
the car running with your doors open and your kids in the car on the street. You
objection, hearsay.
Completely irrelevant to anything to do with this defamation case. And around Kate James, Elaine, Amber's lawyer, was consistently trying to get into evidence.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of Defendant's Exhibit 209. Business records exception.
Still hearsay, Your Honor.
Business record exception gets the business record, but it's hearsay. If there's hearsay involved inside the business record, there's still objection to hearsay.
Your Honor, the business records exception, I don't agree. I think that's the point that hearsay can approach.
Elaine is so unprofessional. She argues with the judge. There's meant to be an objection, and then if you don't agree with it, you can go up to the bench and discuss it with the judge. You do not argue in front of the jury. It is extremely bad practice, but it gets worse. Anyway, that document didn't come in. But the reason that's important, especially, is because Kate James has said that Amber's rape story, I'm not sure which one, but one of those, Kate James has said that Amber stole her rape story. Either they're really both unlucky in that respect, or Amber is completely fabricating that. You decide. Amber also discussed Johnny trying to get sober. So Johnny was on his island and he meant to have a nurse give him whatever drug it's meant to be to like help you. It's a bit like if you're on, is it meth and they give you like a certain thing? It's to help wean you off of the stuff. It's not as potent. It's just like it's to curb the craving or something. It was for some reason agreed that Amber would be the person to prescribe him his medication. The reason that she didn't give him the pills that he wanted is because he was being overprescribed.
What I found out in that time is that he was taking about double the amount.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Was this
No,
your observation?
I saw it.
Okay, overruled.
Thank you.
And she changes her facts very fucking quickly. She changes it from, I found out that he was taking too much. And the second objected to, she says, I saw it. Well, that's not what she fucking said 2 seconds ago. On Johnny Depp's side, he said that Amber, she was literally withholding his treatment from him. She said that, oh, you're not only meant to have it at this specific time and this specific time. And he tried to explain to her that it doesn't matter what time if I need it, I have to take it. And he literally went into a shower and put scalding hot water on him to try and change his receptors to think about pain rather than his addiction. I don't have any reason to not believe Johnny at this point, considering his story's never changed, unlike Amber's. And to do something like that to someone, to withhold their treatment from them so that they can be healthy, screams abusive. So then she talks about apparently an assault where he was kneeling on her back. And this was the same apparent day that they had to go to a premiere, an award or whatever it was. And she had a backless dress.
Walked a red carpet with him, and I remember in the car checking my phone obsessively for pictures because my dress was backless. Of all times to have a backless dress. And then I was just looking at pictures, and I was on the red carpet. It was surreal because I was checking for bruises and making sure that nothing, like there would be no marks on me, and we just looked like this other thing on this red carpet when it was just...
They show multiple angles of this dress. Not once does she say she ever used makeup to cover up the apparent marks that would have fucking appeared. At the very least, the redness. And they show multiple angles of this on cross, and there is nothing. Please explain that to me. Then she discusses Australia, and again, there's another alleged rape.
Stop you for a moment. Have you seen Mr. Depp take any drugs by this point?
Oh yeah, sorry if I left that out. Really destabilized and felt really vulnerable. I'm naked, and he's flinging me around, and at some point I'm up against the wall and he's screaming at me that he fucking hates me, that it ruined his life. In his eyes, and I don't see him anymore. I don't see him anymore. It wasn't him. It was black. I've never been so scared in my life. It was black. I couldn't see him. My head was bashing against the back of the bar, and I couldn't breathe. And I remember trying to get up, and I was slipping on the glass. My feet were slipping. My arms were slipping on the countertops. And I remember just trying to get up so I could breathe, so I could tell him that he was really hurting me. I didn't think... I don't know. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get through to him. I couldn't get up. I couldn't get up. And I don't know how that ended. I don't know how. I don't know what happened next. I don't understand this. I felt this pressure. He owned my pubic bone, and he thought he was punching me. I just saw his arm. I could feel his arm moving, and it looked like he was punching me. But I could just feel this pressure. It was like it kept hitting me. It didn't feel pain. It was just a pressure on my pubic bone, and
don't know. I don't remember.
She gets a lot of the information mixed up. She says that he must have cut his finger off at some point when she was asleep, because apparently she took sleeping pills when she was held hostage by Johnny, because that makes fucking sense. If you're that terrified of your abuser, and you lock yourself into a room, you would not be taking sleeping pills when they could assault you again. Like, it's not happening. And then she says later on that she saw it and that that was from XYZ. Like, she cannot keep any of it straight. Put it this way, at this point, at the very least, I would hope that the jury can see that they can't just take her word for it. If it's a he said, she said, they shouldn't take either of their words for it, and they should look at the independent parties and physical evidence. That's what they should be looking at, I would hope. After she's apparently woken up from these sleeping pills, Johnny is peeing in front of his security.
What the heck was going on? Johnny took his penis out of his pants and started trying to pee or peeing outside of the house, saying that he had more messages for me. And this is in front of security. And they kind of just like looked at each other and looked at him and kind of not laughed, but kind of half, played it off and corralled him.
Considering this is a very insignificant part of this whole Australia part, to be honest, considering she's glossed over quite a few other moments, like, considering there was meant to be a smashed up fucking phone that nobody's ever seen a picture of anywhere, but there was a phone on the counter still completely intact, so put it together. Considering everything else in this story and this very, very, very insignificant apparent moment, it probably wasn't the smartest decision to talk about something that's pretty insignificant to the whole story, when the security guard who apparently would have witnessed Johnny peeing in front of him had already testified that didn't happen.
Mr. Depp was trying to urinate in the foyer, wasn't he?
No.
Mr. Depp had his penis out of his pants, didn't he?
I think I would remember
Relevance.
Mr. Depp's penis.
I'll allow it. Next question.
And you were trying to...
Not the wisest choice. We need to get into the makeup palette, because she talks about her injuries. Plenty of photos that some were in different lighting, although clearly one had just been edited, because if you go and you turn on a light and then you come back, there's no way you're at exactly the same fucking angle. She shows an apparent gross pussy scalp, which that's not what that looks like. That just looks like, to me it didn't even look like hair had been pulled. If I hadn't seen actual hair on the floor, I wouldn't even think that scalp had even hair pulled out. It literally just looked like you'd manoeuvred hair enough to see the scalp. It didn't even look very red. It just looked a little bit, like maybe it's just a tiny bit inflamed. There was a mark under her eye, and people have said Erin Filati, her nurse, did admit that she had a cyst removed at one point. And again, the saturation has been, things have been edited on these photos. I think I forgot to mention. The metadata for these photos, metadata shows when these photos were genuinely taken, like if they've been edited, etc. None of that data was ever handed over to Depp's team. If you have nothing to hide, if you're telling the truth, why wouldn't you just hand it over? Because Johnny didn't have anything to hide. He handed over everything. Again, people have looked at these photos and they've seen that in the original photo, where you can't see any cyst under her eye, you can't see the calendar. However, when the photo is likely edited, you can see a cyst. If a certain saturation is turned up, you can see more. And because you can see the cyst that wasn't originally shown, you can also see the date on the calendar. Questionable, huh? But they also show photos around her hairline, which people have again noted that these are very, 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 very similar to what you would get from Botox. Again, just something to think about. Just a possibility that may have something to do with it. But the last thing I want to just quickly discuss is around the makeup palette. So I mentioned this in my original video, my first video about this trial, regarding the makeup palette that Elaine showed and said that this is the exact makeup palette that Amber used during her relationship with Johnny. And then Milani came out and said that, well, that's funny that you should mention that because that palette didn't come out until 2017. So how did she use it between 2015 to 2016? I'm sure she used it. More interesting when they tried to discuss it, but she held it up and said, obviously this isn't the exact one I used.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about as a color correction kit. This is not obviously the exact one I used to carry, but I used to carry it with me all the time.
Well, where the fuck is the exact one you used then? Because that would be much, much, much more concrete evidence, surely. But she also called it her bruise kit.
And then if you want to cover up a bruise, you obviously put foundation first, concealer, and then on top of that, I used a bruise kit. Not a bruise kit, it's a theater makeup kit, a color correction kit, but I called it my bruise kit.
Now, there are genuinely products called a bruise kit. In that photo with the ice cream spilled over Johnny, there is a palette at the bottom of the screen that looks very fucking similar to an actual able to still buy bruise kit. Something that people use in special effects to create bruises. She also mentioned that she used foundation, then concealer, then colour corrector. If you want it to look natural, if you want something to look natural, you would never put colour corrector on top. I raised this to Robert Welsh and asked, would you ever use colour corrector over the top of foundation and concealer? And he said that you can, but you would have to then correct on top of that. So you'd colour correct and then you'd put like more products over that and it would just be layer upon layer upon layer and it would look really thick and cakey and unnatural. So someone who would look very natural to all of these apparent people that Elaine was talking to, you know, to Isaac Baruch, who saw her the day afterwards and didn't see anything on her fucking face, to the building manager who saw her on and around the whole entire of their relationship and never saw anything on her face. Are you okay? You good boy. Just make it make sense. So before I even get into Cross, something I want to highlight is that Amber could have won this defamation case. There was the last part of her direct which highlighted around the article, and if she had just kept to specifically those points and didn't want to tell her side of the story, she would have probably won this over technicalities, but she didn't want to do that. That was a choice, and that would bite her in the arse. And now we're going to get onto Cross, which was so fucking satisfying. Camille only made maybe 2 mistakes the whole way through that, which was, for instance, she referred to a document where she said that you never said XYZ, and Amber did highlight, well, yeah, but it also says I'm a man on this, so...
It also says I'm a well-nourished male.
Right.
She also said that, well, you never said XYZ, and Amber highlighted, yes, I did, it's on the next page. There was just a couple of very small gotcha moments for Amber's team, but the rest of it was pretty cut and dry. So the first thing that Camille highlighted was that Johnny hasn't looked at her once since she's been in that courtroom.
Mr. Depp hasn't looked at you once this entire trial, has he?
Not that I've noticed, no.
You know exactly why Mr. Depp won't look back at you, don't you?
I do.
He promised you you would never see his eyes again. Isn't that true?
I don't recall if he said that.
They play audio of Johnny admitting that she will never be able to look into his eyes ever again.
No, because I'm nothing to you, and I will always be nothing to you. Let's each other again. You don't take my fucking glasses off. You don't like fucking looking at not my fucking eyes? You will not see my eyes again.
That was pretty fucking powerful, especially to start off with. The other point that really hit home on Amber Heard trying to skirt around technicalities where she said that she donated the full $7 million to charity, to ACLU and to Children's Hospital. She's only ever made one payment to these people, and she also said that she was going to pledge to make £350,000 payments over 10 years due to tax for her, by the way. But if Johnny was going to give it directly to the charities, he would have to pay additional tax and all that sort of stuff. But if it's her, she doesn't have to pay. Gonna get angry, I could just tell. So she continuously tried to say that she uses pledge and donate synonymously.
But you hadn't donated your entire $7 million settlement to charity at that point, had you?
That's incorrect.
Sitting here today, Ms. Heard, you still haven't donated the $7 million divorce settlement to charity. Isn't that right?
Incorrect. I pledged the entirety of the settlement, $7 million to charity, and I intend to fulfill those obligations.
Ms. Heard, that's not my question. Please,
what was
try
your
to answer
question?
my question. Sitting here today, you have not donated the $7 million, donated, not pledged, donated, the $7 million divorce settlement to charity.
I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another. They're
But I
the same
don't.
thing.
Ms. Heard, I don't use it synonymously.
That's how donations are paid.
Ms. Heard, respectfully, that's not my question.
The whole fucking world doesn't use that word synonymously, because you know what? She was trying to look better. She was trying to increase her fucking public image to look like, wow, look at me. Aren't I so great? Couldn't have been a gold digger. I didn't keep any of the money. You fucking did. You kept all of it, and you kept it from children and women who are abused. She went backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. It was like a tennis fucking game, and that would have made her look terrible in front of the jury, because she can't even admit to that, and she's trying to skirt around that technicality. Pledge is just a promise, and she didn't even ever sign that promise. So tell me again, she's a victim of abuse? Following day, they highlighted a number of other things, one of which was the writing on the mirror. Amber took these photos in Australia where Johnny had scribbled on all of these mirrors. She'd apparently been battered and bruised and hit and assaulted, etc. She was very, very, very careful to not get her face in those photos. Do you know how hard it is to take a mirror picture without getting your face in it? She was very fucking careful about that. It doesn't even matter, because again, we have a witness that saw her literally the same day, following day, and they didn't see a fucking mark on her. So discussed the day before she got a restraining order against Johnny. So again, when she turned up at the courthouse, she had a mark on her cheek. There's photos literally the day after with her and her friend Rocky Pennington, which we will get into in my week 5 recap, where she looked very, very jovial, and she didn't have a single mark on her face. She also clearly didn't have any fucking makeup on, because she looked like she basically just rolled out of bed. But she also was seen in a video that her friends took on the drive to Coachella. Again, not a single mark on her. So I can't remember exactly what Camille asked, but there was something that Amber said in cross which was very, very, very fucking telling. She got very, almost angry with Camille for trying to say that she was a victim.
You weren't scared of him at all, were you?
I have a mixed relationship with Johnny, and one in which I'm scared, one in which I love him very much.
I'm not talking about your mixed relationship. That night in Australia, after you cut off his finger with a bottle, you weren't scared of him at all, were you?
This is a man who tried to kill me. Of course it's scary.
She could not admit to being a victim of abuse. She's admitted to surviving that man. She made it very clear that she never wanted to be considered a victim. They also highlighted that Debbie Lloyd was one of the nurses, and that looked after Johnny and Amber, had made a complaint against her and tried to get her to lose her license.
You actually filed a complaint against Miss Lloyd's nursing license right before she was supposedly deposed in this case, didn't you?
No, I don't believe I did.
Are you aware that someone filed a complaint against Miss Lloyd's nursing license in connection with her care of Mr. Depp for failing to report abuse?
No, I had no idea. You're the first person to let me know about that.
It's your testimony under oath, that wasn't you?
That is my testimony.
But, you know, the timing's extremely questionable. She talked about honeymoon photo. There was only one person who had any marks on them during that honeymoon.
This is the only photograph from her honeymoon that shows someone with an injury, correct?
That's not true.
We haven't seen any photos of injuries to your face from that train trip, have we?
I don't believe my face was injured on that trip.
Amber tried to say that that photo was photoshopped.
Fine.
This one is photoshopped.
Ms. Heard.
Just gonna leave that there. And the last thing I want to highlight around Amber is something in her UK deposition where she slipped up.
I had or was about to file, or I had already filed for divorce. I wanted him to know verbally. So I was trying to reach him through a third party to tell him. When I say reach, I'm specifically saying I would like him to know information coming from me or coming from Jerry, from me, so that he finds out about the divorce filing or my intention to do so from some other source other than TMZ, which was alerted.
You slipped up there, didn't you, Miss Heard?
She all but admitted the video of Johnny slamming cabinets, that she'd given that to TMZ. It's so fucking clear anyway that TMZ have the rights to that video because every single person that uses that video gets a copyright claim. It wasn't leaked to them, they own it. Redirect. Skip through this because it was abysmal. The first thing out of Elaine's mouth was mocking the plaintiff in this case.
In which Mr. Depp said, "You will not see my eyes again."
That just made her team look so fucking bad. And we haven't even got into the amount of objections that were sustained.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
A sustained objection. Next question.
What, if anything, do you recall relating to Officer Melissa Sines' testimony relating to your injuries?
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Your Honor said I could redirect after the cross-examination when she...
Every single fucking question that Elaine asked was leading, and you're not allowed to do that. Just ask better fucking questions and they won't be objected to. But she was so adamant she wanted this medical record document in there because Amber tried to say during cross that, well, that's not my job to make sure there's medical records, even though Depp's team highlighted, well, if there was medical records, why the fuck have we never seen it?
A picture you haven't produced or shown to this jury, right, Miss Heard?
I produced everything.
But you haven't shown it to this jury.
I would very much like to. It's not my job.
Elaine was very, very, very much trying to get this document in, and every single question she asked was being sustained, and she was pissed about it.
I'm trying.
I don't know if you're trying to say to Amber Heard, I'm trying for you, I really am, but like, what am I meant to do? Do your job better. So one of the things that was asked, again, to try and get this medical record in, any issues with your nose or whatever, and Amber said that she had scar tissue. First of all, how the fuck do you know what that scar tissue is from? Because if you're, for instance, snorting a drug, that can cause scar tissue, not necessarily breaking of a nose, which, by the way, she did admit in cross, I forgot to mention, that these apparent broken noses, he admitted that, well, it felt like a broken nose.
Miss Heard, you never went to see any doctor or surgeon to treat a broken nose during your relationship with Mr. Depp. Yes or no?
I never sought treatment for a broken nose while I was with Johnny.
So they weren't broken. So we're admitting you're embellishing. Great, got it. I tried to say that she had significant scar tissue.
Overruled.
An improper expert opinion.
Well,
she can certainly testify too.
We'll see where it goes. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a significant amount of scar tissue in my nose.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll sustain the objection.
Even if she does, she is not an expert. Should the nurse or doctor or somebody not be testifying on her behalf to say she had scar tissue? They even tried to discuss the photos and the fact that there was no metadata on them. And Elaine tried to ask Amber what metadata was. Again, she's not an expert. Doesn't matter if she knows. She's not an expert, therefore whatever the fuck she says doesn't matter. You're not allowed to ask expert questions to a witness that is not a fucking expert in the field. Like, I can't. Before I get onto my quick theory, is that when Elaine was done, she had no more questions that could get sustained to. Amber was told she can step down, she can go and sit with her legal team. She left in front of the jury when the judge hadn't even dismissed court yet.
Okay, all right. Ma'am, you can have a seat next to your attorney, okay? You can go and have a seat next to her. That's fine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our afternoon recess then for 15 minutes. Do not discuss the case with anybody and don't do any outside research, okay?
That would have looked astonishingly bad to the jury. That looked like a petulant child who was storming out the room. It was bad. That was direct, redirect and cross. Now quickly for my theory. We will get into week 5 in my next video, but Amber had plenty of friends that stayed rent-free in Johnny's penthouses. We had Rocky Pennington, Josh Drew, Io Tell It Right, Amber's sister, Whitney. But we also had this Elizabeth Mars. And there was something Alazy mentioned in a video that I watched not too long ago.
I've never acted like that. Actually, no, that's not true. When I used to have no followers but did a bunch of cocaine, I would maybe act like this because cocaine isn't great. Why do all my videos just turn into talking about drugs, for fuck's sake? Cocaine is so egoic. You think you are the shit even though you're doing nothing but doing cocaine with another bunch of arrogant tossers too.
And considering there was apparently all these bags of cocaine everywhere, and then her sister has said that she was losing weight and she'd never seen her like this, etc. And she was really worried about her. She's never admitted to trying to get clean ever. While Johnny was clean, she was still doing MDMA and she was still doing mushrooms and she was still drinking wine. And it genuinely makes me wonder, was she addicted to cocaine during their relationship? I'm not saying that cocaine makes you an abuser. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say that it would explain why her and her friends thought they could get away with everything. Thought that they were entitled to stay at his penthouses rent-free. It makes you wonder. It would, for me, it would explain, not everything, but it would explain her behaviour around this time, around the entitlement. It would explain her losing weight apparently so fast. It would just make a lot of things just fall into place. I'm not opposed to people doing drugs. Do whatever the fuck you want. I'm not trying to be hateful with my theory, so please don't take it as that. I can't even drink more than maybe like 1 per week, otherwise I get ridiculously depressed. If you liked this longer format video, make sure to give this a like, subscribe if you feel like it. I'll do a week 5 recap as soon as possible. Turn on your notifications if you want to see that, but I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye!